right, so we came across this video about 11 years ago.
By the sage Noam Chomsky.
Yeah, by Noam God.
So Sam Harris said the end of faith.
Yeah.
Noam Chomsky was the beginning of my,
Yeah.
I won't say faith, but yeah. So it was pertaining to how we elect politicians in this country, how campaigns work.
Yeah, so this guy asked him a question about Obama, how Obama was elected, and how people didn't know anything about him. And he asked him a very good question. Basically it was, how, if people don't know anything about him, how is this going to play out, and what is going to be the backlash?
Mm.
That's great hopes in people, precisely because he was an unknown. I recall reading that a Peruvian peasant was asked why he voted for a particular candidate for presidency. He said, because I know nothing about him. And I'm afraid that's what happened in this country. People voted for Obama because they knew nothing about what he really was going to carry out. And it's a very dangerous situation when you raise exaggerated high hopes and then you dash them down. You know what happened in France after 1968? De Gaulle came back to power with a vengeance. The Labour Party disappointed people in England in the 60s, and the Thatcher regime came in. The party disappointed people in this country, and we got Reagan. What's going to happen, as seems to be starting right now, when this exaggerated hopes are dashed down? Do we have real dangers here, and how can we fight that?
Yeah, you're quite right. And in fact, Obama and his campaign managers made sure you would know nothing about him, or very little about him. I mean, if you look back at the campaign, the slogans were hope and change. What hope for what? What change? Well, at that point, it kind of evaporates. Why hope and change? Well, campaign managers are intelligent enough to read polls, and they knew that 80% of the population thought the country's going in the wrong direction. Okay, hope and change. In fact, those were McCain's slogans too, except he didn't do it as well. Obama made it primarily because the financial institutions, who have enormous power in the country, mainly thanks to Reagan and Clinton, they preferred him to McCain. So they poured money into the Obama campaign way beyond McCain, and that's the core of the funding. And yes, he managed to make it, over to win the election. And it shouldn't come to us as a surprise to anyone who knows anything about American political history that they're being paid off. Just take a look at the front pages every day. The big problem for the big banks now is that the profits and the bonuses are so high that they're getting a bad press. So they have to figure out some way to conceal it by, say, taking them in stocks instead of money. So you're kind of borrowing money from the public instead of stealing it. So sure, they're getting paid off for having put Obama in office, but the other programs are, well, what's happening to them. He's probably a nice man, I don't know, but there shouldn't, just as you said, there should be no surprise. They were very careful to keep it quiet, and that's characteristic of U.S. elections. The U.S. elections are a facade. They are run by the public relations industry, who market candidates the same way they market toothpaste and lifestyle drugs. When you see an ad on television, you're not supposed to believe it. It's not an attempt to inform you the way it would be in a market system. It's a way to create uninformed consumers who will make irrational choices. Exactly the opposite of what you're taught in an economics class about markets. But business spends huge amounts of money to undermine markets by constructing uninformed consumers who are supposed to make irrational choices. And the same institutions, the PR institutions, run the campaigns, and they market candidates the same way. They want an uninformed electorate that'll make irrational choices. And in fact, as maybe you know, Obama won an award from the advertising industry for the best marketing campaign of 2008. He beat out Apple Computer. If you read the business press, executives were euphoric. They said, it's the best we've done since Reagan. We sort of were able to market him. Now we have an even better achievement. It's going to change the atmosphere in corporate boardrooms, new ways of behaving and portraying ourselves and so on. Yeah, that's the case. And one technique is, if you really want to create an uninformed electorate, you have to keep issues off the agenda. And there's a second reason for that. On issues, both of the political parties are commonly well to the right of the population. So it's important to keep issues off the table, make sure people don't know what they are. So yeah, you're quite right. And what will the result likely be? And my suspicion is an erosion of the base for the Obama campaign, because people will be disillusioned. They shouldn't be, but they will be, and it's understandable. And a very significant backlash. There's a huge group of people in the country who feel they have serious grievances. The grievances go back to the 1970s. The shift of the economy from production to finance, which is a huge shift that took place primarily under Reagan and Clinton, and of course Bush even more extreme. And that's left a lot of people out in the cold. Majority of the population have seen their wages and incomes stagnate for 30 years. Their benefits decline, services decline, infrastructure collapse, and so on. And they're not happy about it. And they want to know, why is this happening to me? If you listen to talk radio, you get a good sense of it, which I do. When I drive, I listen. The standard person is saying something like, I've done everything right. I'm a hardworking, decent, white Christian, done everything right. Why is this happening to me? Well, who's going to give them an answer? They're not going to get an answer from the Republican Party saying, yeah, that's the policies we designed to shaft you and enrich a couple of rich people. And they're not going to get an answer from the Democratic Party saying, well, that's pretty much our policy too, except maybe not as extreme. So they get an answer from Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, who tell them, well, I got an answer. It's the rich liberals who own the banks and run the government and own the media and don't care about you people, the flyover people. They only care about the rich folk on the two coasts. They want to give everything away to illegal immigrants and the unworthy poor and so on. So yeah, that's your problem. Well, if that's the only answer you're going to get, people are likely to believe it. And we had experiences like this. It's unfortunately reminiscent of late Weimar Germany, where there were people with grievances. And they were getting an answer, crazy answer, horrible answer, but happened to take over with consequences we know about. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but the similarities are not insignificant.
If the things that he said he's going to do and not, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. And he did reference, Thatcher being elected and Reagan as well. And there was a backlash against the previous administrations.
Yeah. So, and Noam Chomsky goes in detail in explaining how this thing happened, and what is going to happen later on. And we know what happened.
Yeah. After
8 years of Obama. And of hope and change. That hope and change that never came.
He said, hope and change for what? They're empty words, right?
Yeah, these are empty words. And that's the reason I think Obama used hope and change, because there was nothing really behind it.
Yeah, kind of a nebulous, terms that they could mean anything you want them to mean.
Yeah. It could have been hope for going to the moon again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it could be anything, basically.
Maybe you're going to change your diet. Yeah. I don't know, right? So we didn't really, it wasn't specific, right?
No.
All he was running on was that he's not George Bush. We're not going to be like the Bush administration. It'll be different.
And people wanted change because 8 years of Bush were disaster.
Sure.
And the country had gone into a ditch, basically. housing collapse, banks collapse,
Mm-hmm.
people
Market.
lost jobs.
Right.
So
Catastrophic.
yeah, and he kind of grabbed onto this hope and change thing where he gave people hope and really didn't tell people what he was going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and his campaign was
It was fluff.
yeah,
It's a lot of fluff.
yeah. There was, I mean, it was just a cloud in the sky.
Yeah. 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 Not much on substance. But that was a point, right? So his handlers or the people behind the campaign, they knew that.
Yeah,
They knew, again, they read the polls, as Chomsky said, and they knew what the people wanted. And they didn't want details, really. Just wanted to feel better. Like they felt horrible under Bush.
yeah.
So-
I mean, most people don't pay attention to details anyway,
Yeah.
and that's what campaigns are all about. And Noam Chomsky pointed out his campaign was just like selling toothpaste.
Just another advertisement, right? And he won an award, is that right, for his campaign or advertisements?
Yeah, that's what he says, that he won an award
Yeah.
for having run a best campaign ever, and that was the reason for him winning.
And then the backlash against Obama gave us
Yeah,
Donald Trump.
and he asked what's going to happen, and the backlash was Trump.
Because he didn't deliver on what was promised,
Yeah,
which was, again very nebulous. It wasn't specific, but it was going to be better than what you
Yeah.
had before.
yeah, and if Democrats have not learned from that, and Biden doesn't learn from that history,
And there's no guarantee they have.
I don't think they have, because they have already forgotten how they won Georgia or any of those battleground states.
Yeah, how did they turn Arizona?
Yeah, Arizona and Nevada.
Sure.
So, and California too.
Yep.
Sorry, California.
They did turn California at some point.
Yeah.
It was in the past, but yeah, they didn't remember what got him into office, the promises that were made
Yeah.
that need to be kept. Again, Biden's trying to backtrack on the stimulus amount. Well, that's not what he promised.
No.
He promised $2,000. Now they're talking about $1,400.
And there are other Democrats that are saying that they're not aboard this stimulus package because they don't believe in such a big amount.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, it's not like it's coming out of their pocket.
Yeah, and what are the
It's not coming out of anybody's pocket, actually. It's just
No.
a number will be created in the back of Treasury.
Yeah, they're crediting the accounts. So one of the criticisms of the Obama plan was that the stimulus was too small,
Yeah.
right? And then it dragged out the recovery for too many years. And the idea was that not to let it happen again. So by spending enough now, you can expedite the recovery and
Yeah.
get people back to work, open the economy back up. So the criticism now is you can't go too small. You can't go. We've tried it before; it doesn't work. That kind of austerity measure, it's not effective.
So are we safe to call these dinos now?
Dinos, what does that mean? What is a dino? I know what a rhino is, but
These are called Democrats in name only. I think we have coined a new term.
I think you have. Yeah, they're really just corporatist and democratic clothing.
Yeah. And if Biden doesn't learn from this thing, he has a shellacking coming in 2 years.
Yeah, and then 2 years after that.
And 2 years after that, he'd probably be out.
Yeah. So might as well go bold now while you can, while you
Yeah.
have some measure of power. Because if you lose the Senate, well, it's gone anyway. So
Senate is at 50-50 right now.
yeah.
So
Plus,
it doesn't take a lot to lose Senate.
yeah, that's right. So take heed, Biden.
Yep.
And friends.
Learn from the past.
That's right.
Even though the past wasn't that great, you have to learn.
It's only going to get better, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, folks. That brings us to the end of the show.
Be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below if you do.
We'll try to answer those comments as many as we can.
Thanks for watching.